So we're here in the middle of a series based on the book, Who Have You Come Here to Be? We have a class that's starting that is based on this practice, which isn't just a simple practice that we can hear about it a couple times and activate it and go, okay, got it, done. It is actually a living practice that takes everything, every moment of awareness to look into our patterns, our habits, our thoughts, our reactions, our actions, and to ask deep questions of ourselves. Am I now standing from, coming from, living from, being, breathing from who I am here to be? We have ample opportunities in this day and age, do we or do we not, to live from what we are not called to be, to live from our injury self, to live as if there is something or someone against me, whether it is an employer, a family member, a job, right? Anything. You can just think for a moment, what does it feel like? Is there any place in my life where it feels like it's an uphill battle? My own consciousness, whatever it is. Is there any place where it feels like there's something pressing against me? Well, it's part of the human condition to love those things that feel like they're supporting us and push away the things that seem like they're not helping us. But what if we were to dive into an experiment of consciousness and be open to possibly changing our minds about everything we think about what we've thought? Part of this work is based on the book by Alan Cohen, I Had It All the Time. And I'm going to start with this passage. He says this: A Course in Miracles reminds us, I am as God created me. I am as God created me. Jesus declared, I am the way, the truth, and the life. You and I can and must claim the same identity with equal authority. Pretty radical statement, right? We must claim, this is the charge, the call, that we must claim the same identity with equal authority. He goes on to say, the great prophet has echoed the same message. You are the light you seek. The knowledge of our wholeness is not gained through acquisition, but by discovery, nor is it achieved in steps, but through awakening. It is the result of a quantum shift in our identity and our way of living. He goes on to say, you cannot be the small person you thought you were and know the magnificent one you are. You cannot identify yourself as empty and enjoy the riches of fullness. The time has come to cease looking and start finding, to quit growing and acknowledge knowing, to stop acting small and to claim it all. We are ready to put aside the toys of childhood and walk in the majesty we were born to express. Amen. So saying what are you called to be can be a great intellectual conversation. It can be a great thing that we can go, oh, I'm called to be an expression of God. I'm called to be infinite intelligence. I'm called to be all of these great expressions, right? But if we look at our global consciousness, our race consciousness, and we look at ourselves as individuals, moment to moment, we have what we're called to be, and then we have how we show up. And sometimes how we show up for ourselves and what we think about how we're called to be and how we're being, right? Sometimes even that doesn't radiate with the same field of receptivity when it hits someone out here. Do you know what I'm saying? I can think I'm called to be loving, and I could do something, say something, act in some way that I think is the highest consciousness available to me, and someone on the receiving end of that experience could say, that seems out of order. That seems out of alignment with love, right? Have you ever had those misunderstandings, those crosses, or had someone that has been a great gift to you that helped you see where your energy field of what you're called to be, the love you're here to share, has gotten lost in translation? My sister used to have the funniest things she would do, and she wasn't aware of it, but we would be sitting at family dinners or wherever we were, and someone would be telling a story or talking, and we'd be going around the table, and my sister, who is very beautiful, would get this look on her face as she was listening to the story, and it would just start like this. It'd get a little hazy, and then it'd start going like this. And she would sit there listening to the whole conversation like this. And I mean, I know my sister, and I know it really didn't have much. I mean, it could have had something sometimes to do with the conversation going on, but really probably not. And she didn't even realize she was doing it. And one time I just said to her, "Do you know what your face looks like? Do you know what your face looks like when you're in this state of like listening?" She's like, "No, what does it look like?" And I said to her, I said, "It's a very distinct face. Maybe she'll Facebook it for us later today." And she went, "Oh my, thanks for telling me." But sometimes it takes just that, right? It takes just a moment of awareness, either something going on outside of us or something going on inside of us that awakens us to something that we didn't even know was happening. And how often are we sedated in life? How often are we asleep to what's going on in the field of energy that we either put out or we bring in, right? We tend to show up a lot of times as pain transmitters. We've been working on this the last couple of Sundays, and my favorite little quote from Jane Simmons was, I can't remember it right now, but it was, "If we don't heal the pain, we transmit it." Did anyone get it as like I got it, right? Pain that's not healed is pain transferred. So we do we not walk around like pain transmitters a lot? Walk around like storytellers? Do we walk around like storytellers of God consciousness, of how absolute and whole the spiritual universe is and how power-filled it is to be here in this moment in our lives at this time in the spiritual reality of creation? Sometimes. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes we walk around affirming our separation, filtering our reality through the lens of injustice, through the lens of victimization. And we go around creating evidence for this. But if we are really to take on the spiritual path and the spiritual life, a critical and crucial shift has to happen. It's a shift that is voluntary, but it's also a shift that cannot be avoided if we're really here to be what we're called to be. Now, there's no rules, right, on living the game of life. Some of us live our entire lives not being really what we're called here to be. If we're called to be of the light, if we're called to be expressing good, if we're called to be co-creators, sometimes we live our lives in this states of stuck, in this state of pain, in the state of anguish, in the state of transferring pain, transferring injustice, transferring stories, problems. You know, this is crazy, but even here in our local community, I have found that there are a lot of people in the local community that have an idea about unity that's not based on anyone that is living. Do you know what I'm saying? It's based on like generations and generations of people who have been gone, but maybe my grandparents had an experience in the early 1900s of what was going on here at Unity, or whether or not it was inclusive or not, or whether or not it was dynamic, whether or not it was open, right? And then, like, I'll meet people, and Evan says sometimes that I am like, who's the, Superman and Lois Lane, and sometimes he's Superman and sometimes he's Clark Kent. He says, sometimes you do that Clark Kent thing. And that's when we're out and we something comes up about unity and we talk, and I say, "Oh, yeah, so what's your experience of it?" And we have these conversations, and he says, "You're not going to say you're the minister there?" And I'm like, if they come, they'll find out. Unless they have a great experience of unity then. No. But we have some really great dynamic conversations in the community. And when it boils down to it, and I ask the question, so what do you think about it? Have you been there? All of this. It's usually an inherited story, right? That has nothing to do, but it was a story that was passed down, a story of lack or limitation or injury that was passed down and unhealed. And what does that do? That keeps us from our good. It doesn't matter if the story is or was true. It matters, does it serve me? And does it ever have a purpose for a story to serve me that keeps me in separation from another human being or keeps me in fear? No value. No value. I am here, you are here, we're here to have our own original experiences, not to live through someone else's lens. And that takes a deep, deep and vigilant practice. Because in life, we're born and it's almost like the lenses start shooting on us. Have you ever seen a little baby acting in a certain way and seen the people around it start making adult labels for that child and go, oh, look, such a flirt, such a brat, such a this, such a that, such a this. Some of them are good. Some of them maybe apply, maybe don't. But if we hear these messages from the time we're born through our development, what do we start doing? We start thinking that these are not lenses, these are my identity. These are not lenses that I'm putting on and I can take off. This is who I am. This is how the world experiences me. And we forget that we are here, and by our divine birthright, we can take off every lens, every story, every experience, emotion, and thought, and come instantly back to our divine blueprint, back to the perfect pattern of who we are, and experience life purely, unhindered, completely new. Completely new. And that's what it means to be born again of the Spirit, not to be attached to those things. But that crucial shift has to happen when we really ask ourselves the question, who am I? Who are you? In his book, Alan Cohen says, who are you? Perhaps you have come to the point in your life where you are asking this all-important question. Be careful how you answer, for in your response lies your destiny. If you think you are small, oppressed, or worthless, your world will confirm your belief. If you think you are small, oppressed, or worthless, your world will confirm your belief. We may want to fill in the blank there. Whatever it is. If I think, or I've been told, or I have a lens on of ABC, of this is how I feel, my world will confirm that belief. If you see yourself as whole, a whole creative being here to express joy, give and receive love, and make a contribution to life on the planet, so will your self-image be affirmed. So will the world around you give you evidence to support that possibility. Because we live in a field of infinite possibilities. And the universe is almost asking the question, who would you say you are? Who do you say you are? I hear what they say of who you are. Who do you say you are? He finishes by saying, as Henry Ford noted, think you can or think you can't. Either way, you'll be correct. Think you are or think you're not. Either way, you'll be correct. So the crucial shift when we're on the spiritual path, when we're on the journey, is to step into identities of spiritual consciousness, identities that are unchangeable, to recognize that God is love, and as love, I am love in expression. You are love in expression. That love supports us and is not against us. That we're born blessed, that in every moment we're being supported, just like right now we're being breathed, and we're here, gravity is supporting us, these chairs are supporting us. So is this infinite universe, so is God consciousness supporting us in every moment. But the key is that only we can build that story for ourselves. We're the authors of our lives. Not necessarily everything that happens to us, but the perception and the perspective and what goes down in the book of our lives is entirely up to us. That is our calling. It is our birthright. It is our God-given co-creative ability to write the stories of our lives. We can either go around doing that, gathering evidence for the story that will end up being true, that is not in alignment with what we feel whole experiencing, or we can go around building a story and writing a story about divine appointments and great blessings. How many people have you heard that have been in relationships that have been married and then got divorced, or what do they call it now, conscious separation, conscious completion? But that have been in those relationships, and you could see one person's perspective and it's like, oh, worst decision of my life, it was awful, blah, 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 blah. And you can see another person that says, my beautiful child came out of this relationship and I would not change a second. I wouldn't change a moment of it. So for whatever reason, I will rearrange everything in my mind and everything in my consciousness to get it that this is a divine appointment. a divine appointment, and that everything in my life has moved up to support me because I couldn't go back and change these things and still keep the parts that I love and get rid of the parts that were hard or challenging, get rid of the parts that I saw as my enemy, because if I can stand in this moment and count one blessing, how can I separate the whole? Because life is a whole system. It's not segments and separation, it's just the mind. The mind wants to go, well, take this, but don't take that. But the universe and God consciousness says, here it is. This is all of it. This is all of it. It is whole. And when we can step into that place, we step into one of our greatest powers, one of our absolute greatest powers, and that's building a story. Are we going to build a story by giving voice to creating evidence, creating victimization, creating problems, creating poor me's? That looks like picking up the phone, calling around to share it constantly. That looks like looking for and getting confirmation everywhere you look, building your case, building witnesses to validate our perceptions, experiences, perceptions, reactions, responses. And ironically, all of these things don't have to be validated to be real anyway. They don't have to be validated to be real anyway. So what happens sometimes when we go around building that story is that we're crystallizing the story. We're crystallizing the consciousness. Because now it's not only in my mind that the world is against me, that my family is against me, that this, that that. Now not only is it in my mind, but you're in agreement with me on that. You're sharing a vibrational field of that with me. And together we're holding, we're praying. You want to pray that up? Think about that. Anytime we share a story, unless we share it from a place of consciousness, like I'm sharing this to be heard and to be healed and to remember, I am sharing this story with you to remember that no thing could possibly be against me, and even this garbage is for me, because I will stand in the middle of it and claim that there is something here for my good. There is something here from my God. So do we want to have vibrational partners all around the planet that are making those agreements with us, standing for us? Or do we want to have ones that have the story with us? Oh, you know, Erin, well, she has a hard time with this, and it's been like this, and this is how everyone is with her, and it's just so unfair, and let's just hold the space for her, because Erin, what a mess. What a mess. You wouldn't believe how people treat Erin. What agreements are we making in the vibrational universe around us? We were clearly each born with the full freedom and ability to draw our own conclusions. No one needs to support your story, your emotions, or your experience to make it more real. The greatest urge I believe that each one of us has is actually to witness our story ourselves. To sit so deeply with ourselves that we can embrace all of our spirituality, all of our divinity, and all of our humanity. And to embrace it, not to run away from it. To make a promise that even if anything seemingly outside of me abandons me, I will be here for me. I will be here to remind me. I will be here to remind you that you are loved, that you will create good out of this. And can we take that stand for ourselves? The irony is when we don't, the validation process only solidifies and reinforces the concepts and the experiences, these stories we tell ourselves, that there is a lack of love, a lack of wholeness, a lack of power, a lack of understanding, a lack of peace. If there's separation, injustice, lack, harm, anger, it's here for us to use it. It's here not as an enemy, but as a gift. And that's an odd concept, isn't it? That all of these feelings and all of these things are not here as being against us, but they're here because they're gifts, not gifts that we go out and give to others so that they keep on giving even when we've healed, but gifts for us to look into the portal, and the only portal that is the access point to elevating our consciousness. In the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said, "When you awaken, You will be disturbed. It's one of my favorite passages, and I like to share it. He said, whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. Let's just stop there. He says, whoever discovers the interpretations of these sayings will not taste death. So, that's a big statement, isn't it? You will not taste death. You will not taste death. Think for a moment of what kind of death the master teacher might be referring to. What kind of life might the master teacher be referring to? He goes on to say, those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and will rule over all. Let's stop there. They will rule over all. What kind of ruling over all do we think the master teacher was referring to? Oh, if I get it, guess what? I will rule over all of you. If you get it, you will rule over your entire family. Anyone in for that one? If I get it, I will rule over politics and my government and the world. No, right? The master teacher demonstrated a long time ago that that was not the kind of ruling that was being referenced. What kind of ruling could be given in a process and in a promise that says you will not taste death and you will rule over all? There is only one kind of ruling that could refer to, and that's the ruling of your consciousness. That's the ruling of the divine mind, our minds, and bringing our carnal selves, bringing our separation selves, bringing all of our illusions into alignment with truth. He said, if your leaders say to you, look, the Father's imperial rule is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the imperial rule is inside you and outside you. When you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will understand you are children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty, and you are the poverty. Because looking at just ruling the outside world is taking it not for the gift that it can give to us. In the practice of no thing and no one against me, there's a list of enemy territory feelings. So in Unity, we like to do some practical steps. So how do we put this concept, how do we put it into a practice in our lives this week, this month, this year? Well, here are some of the enemy territory feelings. Those are the things that we say, oh, this must not be for me, this must be a problem, instead of a portal. Can we ask ourselves the question whenever we have any of these feelings, am I going to create a problem? Or am I going to accept that this is a portal to the evolution of my consciousness, to the elevation of my consciousness, to an experience of my wholeness? Enemy territory feelings: aversion, animosity, appalled, contempt, disgusted, dislike, horrified, hate, hostile, repulsed, annoyed, angry, fatigue, tense, disconnected, afraid, pain, vulnerable, embarrassed, sad, agitated, confused, yearning, longing. These experiences that we have as part of the human condition can be thought of as problems, or they can be experienced as portals. In Alan Cohen's book, he goes on to talk about an identity crisis, this crisis of what we're feeling, of who am I? Am I these things? Am I these emotions? Or am I wholeness? Am I love? Am I perfection? These enemy territories, he kind of refers to it like this. He says, a false identity, these false things, is a dangerous entity to maintain, as it distracts us from our true self and leads us to believe we are less than we are. If you have an identity crisis, and I would include if you have enemy territory coming at you, right? This idea, this concept of something is against me anytime it comes from internal or external. If you have an identity crisis, it is not cause for depression, but celebration. It is not cause for depression, but celebration. He goes on to say, at first you might feel frightened and confused, but you are not being cast into darkness. You are being released from it. You are being put in a position to discover that you are more than you thought you were. He says in the Chinese language, the word for crisis is a combination of two characters, danger plus opportunity. Danger plus opportunity. So are we ready to step into our superconscious mind, to step into opportunity whenever anything surrounds us, infills us, confronts us, and to claim that we are not broken, no matter what it is? I stand in the midst of whatever it is, and I am not broken. It's no longer a possibility in my mind. I couldn't live in a harmful, unloving universe. It's not my spiritual principle. So mind, rearrange yourself and show me the blessings. Show me the gifts. Show me right now that it no longer serves me to use this framework, this context, these ideas, these inherited beliefs, these lenses, because I am not going to stay caged. I am here to be what I'm called to be, and I am here to live free. So be the freeness in me, be new vision, so that I can be what I have come here to be. We are either anchored in living from who we are or who we are not. And the universe is just singing to us, just saying, you are brave. I want to hear you. I want to see you. I want to experience your greatness. And that's who we're here to be. Namaste.